signing day in the books for Nebraska, and we're going to break down kind of everything we learned from Matt Rhule and the football program here as the Huskers added 28 recruits, 11 transfers, 39 total players. They're at 103 now on scholarship. That's the big elephant in the room that's going to be with us for several months. And you can put that on your bingo card that we've already talked about. The 103 players in scholarship is, we kind of joke when we talk about that a lot moving forward. But let's focus on just the numbers in general and what they did. And, I thought Matt Rhule, guys, was really impressive on signing day. And I mean, it's stuff you take for granted, but just like coming up prepared, organized, the details, the way he carries himself, the way he represents Nebraska. I think we knew Matt Rhule was going to be a good fit in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of the stuff we've seen so far, you're like, man, this guy is a lot better, at least right now at this stage of the game, than anyone could have probably predicted.
Yeah. I mean, I always want a coach in there that carries himself and operates like a big-time CEO, because that's what this program should have. It's that type of program. You know why. I don't have to go into all those reasons. And he definitely does that. I mean, he really fits that bill. I'm not saying anything about future win-loss record. I'm not saying he's the perfect coach or anything like that. But, yeah, so far, very professional, very pleasant, deals with you in a professional way. Now, one thing I'd add, Rob and Sean, before we move to Rob here. Sean, we call that having 103 players the elephant in the room. It wasn't a big topic today. He glossed over it pretty fast. Said the new rules in college football allow you to get down. Not worried about it. It wasn't, even though it gets discussed. Nobody.
Well,
really,
the transfer portal is one of those new rules.
Yeah, nobody really hit on it too hard today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess my general takeaways along with that, he's this guy that's in total control of the room. Like, he had a direct message of what he wanted to get across. Mm-hmm. He answered in detail the questions he wanted to answer in detail, and he kind of politely declined to get into specifics about stuff he didn't want to talk about, like roster, depth chart projections, and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, like, he wasn't caught off guard by anything, and he's just one of those guys where every time you hear him talk, it's the kind of adult in the room type deal where it's Matt Rhule's show. He runs everything from start to finish, and he carries himself that way.
You're listening here to the Husker Online Show as we break down signing day opening headlines. Huskers added 5 players on signing day, which for February, that's a high number. That's the most Nebraska's added since 2018, and that was the very first year of the early signing day period. We've gone some Februaries with no signees, so it was still a busy February day. Luckily, the hay was in the barn by about 9:15 on Wednesday, so there wasn't any drama. With guys maybe switching or changing their mind. It was a pretty seamless signing day in a lot of respects. And we've been around a lot of these over the years, guys, where they don't typically go this smooth very often.
Yeah, it did. There was no drama, and it was a very productive day with Rhule. He did cover a lot of ground. The other thing that's striking to me about, he likes this team. I mean, he mentioned that Nebraska has its returning players have a 3.124 GPA, that 61 of the 98 returners have GPAs over 3.0. And he said, when you have that, that's the sign of a great culture. And so he clearly likes what he's walking into. I thought that was it. He likes this team. And I'll tell you what, I'm not saying it's a sign of a good recruiter, but I would say this: recruits notice how a head coach treats the returning players. They notice. And he's very mindful of treating the players in the program already well. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and with that, though, he also admitted that he doesn't know a lot of these guys yet. Mm-hmm. He says, "How are you gonna go about learning your roster?" He's like, "Well, they're all gonna have names on the back of their shirts." Yeah. So, like, it's gonna be a process. Like, now that signing day, the book is closed. Now the full attention goes towards this team and getting to know these guys, going to workouts and getting to know guys on a personal level. And he's done that to a degree with probably quite a few players already. But, this is going to be an ongoing process where, he has his opinions based on maybe a kind of a partial information right now. But this is just scratching the surface now as far as getting a true feel for this group that he has going into the season. So, I thought that his honesty and that was good. He's like, you know what, I'm not going to pretend like I know everybody on the team yet. There's 150 some guys that I don't even know who they are, but I think that this is going to be a deal where he's going to make a concerted effort, and his coaches as well, to try to connect with as many players as possible on a personal level and not just look them as player X, player Y. He's going to get to know them on and off the field.
And he's very comfortable in just everything about his approach, which jumps out to me. Like when he walked in the room, he just kind of joked to the media. He goes, "Hey, if you guys don't tape me like walking up to the podium and doing the walk-in, I promise I'll tell you some good information."
No, he said the first 3 questions I won't engage in coach speak.
Coach speak.
Yeah,
and,
he said the first 3.
And then, Ed Foley, Ed Foley, who went, Ed Foley's press conference this week went as long or longer than Matt Rhule's. And Matt Rhule goes, Ed Foley likes the press conference.
Yeah.
He goes, I watch all my guys talk.
Yeah, he does. That was interesting.
Do you think, okay, let me ask you this. Do you think Scott Frost or Mike Riley or Bo Pelini watched all the interviews of their assistant coaches? I don't
know.
All of them.
Yeah,
all of them, not just like every once in a while. Every one of them.
They may have been briefed on them, but to sit down and watch.
Yeah.
And he said part of it was because they want to find things to make fun of them afterwards. Like if they say something that they can jab them later. But he also said that he didn't like some of the, like Terrence Knighton. He made the comments about
Knighton said the staff's really competitive.
The competition within the staff, and like Matt Rhule wanted to clarify that. Like it's not like who can get the most recruits and who can undercut the other coach to sign a guy in their room as opposed to another room. It's a healthy.
Well, we saw that here at Nebraska over the years, where other assistant coaches
absolutely we saw
cut over
recently.
Other guys to take recruits over them, and it happened on the previous staff. It got a little dicey behind the scenes.
And what did I always tell you, Sean? I would always tell you, that is a head coach issue. That the head coach has to nip that in the bud. You can't. That leadership has to come from the top. You can't, if that's happening, which it was. That has to be nipped in the bud by the head coach. He has to be aware of it, and then he has to deal with it.
You can't let assistants run rogue in recruiting.
No,
and that's happened.
It happens around the country.
I mean, it's not just Nebraska.
Right. And I think that what you look at what he did to build this staff. Like he built the staff of guys that would fit his model. He could have, with the money he was given from Trev Alberts to build the staff, he could have went out and brought in the all-star band of coaches. And he had I'm sure people wanted to work here for him, but he chose to kind of go around to build a team of guys that will work for him. 14, I thought that was interesting too. 14 of these coaches have played for Matt Rhule at his previous stops, whether it's Western Carolina, Temple, Baylor, Carolina Panthers. And that was a real interesting nugget that he shared, because if the players are frustrated, these coaches know me well enough to say, hey, that's his coach. Like they have a really good insight to Matt Rhule that they can, relate that to the team.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, okay, now he's pleasant and he talks about a family atmosphere, but he also says it's not, this is not going to be easy, and it's not easy. And we do work. And he did, Sean, you asked him right out of the gate, now you have this class intact. Can you breathe? He said, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
No,
he looked at me like I was crazy.
No, I'm not taking it. He said, I'm not taking any time off. It's a sprint. And then he got into, now you get to know the team. So yeah, it's interesting. I think he's interesting to me because he's very pleasant, but he'd be pretty demanding, or not pretty demanding. He'll be very demanding. Yeah, very demanding coach.
Every assistant that we've listened to talk has said the same thing. Like Matt Rhule expects a lot from them, and he has a very high standard for everybody that works for him. Look at the Ed Foley example. We've spent the last however many weeks praising him for getting around to every 75 high schools around the state, and Matt's like, you guys make a big deal about this. That's like the expectation. 8 high schools a day is the bare minimum of what I want these coaches to go out and do. Like, I mean, like that's like we're praising guys for the minimum expectation about. So like, I mean, that just shows you just how high the bar is set internally, not just for the team, but for the entire staff.